Yes, welcome into the Mott and Bailey Basement Bar, and welcome back to Straight to the Chase here on the Fantasy Baseball Advice Network. I am your host, Chase Thornton. It is week 12 of the fantasy baseball season, and today we're going to look at some recent injury news, some two-start pitchers, matchups to exploit, all kinds of fun. You might notice I am down to just the mustache now for the time being, so hopefully my appearance is a little less obnoxious than last time out if you're watching me on the YouTubes there. But we want to remind you to hit like and subscribe. Make sure you're getting notifications whenever we drop new content here so we can continue to help you chase greatness all season long and dominate your league mates. And you can find past episodes of Straight to the Chase wherever you get your podcasts, so be sure to download us on your favorite podcast app. But that's enough of the nuts and bolts of the thing. Let's crack a beverage and get straight to the chase, shall we? Now, leading off, we're in week 12 and the injuries never cease, which is kind of a little bit of a pun maybe on a guy that we're going to talk about in a little bit here. But looks like we avoided the worst injury scare of the week, though, after Shohei Ohtani was pulled from Thursday's game with left knee inflammation and pretty much put the fear of God into every single one of his fantasy managers. Now, he did sit out Friday's game, but the imaging that they did on him came back positive. Positive, negative. I can never remember which is which when you're talking from a medical standpoint. Either way, it was good news because it didn't reveal any structural damage, just inflammation there. So the baseball world got to breathe a collective sigh of relief. And then he promptly went out and led off Saturday's game with a home run on the second pitch that he saw. So, I would just like to take this opportunity to say, dear 8-pound, 6-ounce newborn infant Jesus, thank you for listening and answering the prayers of Shohei Ohtani's fantasy managers. I'd like to thank you for returning him to his rightful place atop not only the lineup, but the pitcher's mound as well. And little baby Jesus with your adorably squishy cheeks and your little button nose. Sometimes you get hiccups after nursing and everyone feels bad for you, but you're still just so darn cute. We ask you that you allow Shohei to continue the heater that he has been on this month, even as we thank you for delivering him to our shores, although you did choose to keep him in Los Angeles. But either way, amen. Thank you. Thank you for Shohei Ohtani not being injured and not missing any length of time there. So I know that kept me happy. I have him in my two most important leagues, and I was sweating bullets until Saturday rolled around. So that was nice, not losing the game's best player to the injured list, but we were not so lucky on the infield, though. Jose Ramirez and Vinny Pasquentino, a couple of guys that made sure that fantasy baseball fans will never forget what the hamate bone is, right? Both of them ended up breaking their hamates this past Saturday, weirdly enough, same day, and adding to the weirdly long list of players who have suffered from this very specific and, until recently, very rare injury. Heretofore, almost unheard of injury, but this year, all of a sudden, it's hamates all around. You get a hamate bone, and you get a hamate fracture, and you get surgery. Excellent. And it's been big names, too. It's not just everyday schmucks, right? I mean, Corbin Carroll, Francisco Lindor, Jackson Holliday, Ryan Jeffers, who was tearing it up before that. They've all missed time this season for hamate injuries, and now we get to add Jose Ramirez and Vinny Pasquentino to that list as well. Now, if you don't know what the hamate is or why it's been such a big deal here, let me kind of show you on my little souvenir bat here. Now the hamate is basically, it's below your palm, right on the pinky side of your hand. So it's right down in here. Now it's not this little hard knobby part that you can feel right there that you probably went to at first when you're feeling around there. That's actually the pisiform bone, but the hamate actually sits right above or below, depending on how you relate to your hand. But it actually sits right below that, kind of like behind that. Okay, so if you kind of feel around, if you kind of squeeze around on this little fleshy part of your hand here, between that pisiform bone and the middle of your palm, right in here, you might be able to even feel yours. Okay, and that hamate bone is sort of hook shaped on this palmar side here. It's kind of flatter on the back, but on this side, it's got a hook shape to it. Okay. Now, when a guy grips his bat, okay, traditional bat knobs here, they place a lot of stress on that area of your bottom hand, especially the ones that, like I said, the traditional bat knobs that come down and flare to almost that like 90-degree angle here. Very abrupt transition between this, the thinner part, and then all of a sudden, boom, you've got all this material here. Now, when a guy grips his bat, like I said, there's a lot of stress on that, and it gets even worse when you get, you'll see some guys who kind of hold their bat, instead of holding it with it butted up against the bottom of their hand like that, some guys are starting to kind of wrap their hand almost kind of over that knob. And that helps, they're looking for that whip action is what they're trying to get. And so they're holding it as far down as they can to be able to accentuate that, right? But when they wrap their hand around that, look right where that pressure goes, right on that hamate. It's actually even more direct high pressure on the hook part of that hamate bone. And so like Vinny and Jose Ramirez here, they both, don't drop things, bro. Hey, all right. They both injured theirs just popping up, like foul pop-ups, right? But you can break that and injure that as well, like just checking a swing. In fact, I want to say that might have been how Jackson Holiday broke his, was on a check swing. Just weird. But for an injury that we had never heard much about, it sure is having an impact on this season, right? And when you break that little hook part of that bone in there, you're just done gripping anything for about a month, right? Your ulnar nerve kind of runs right through that general area. That's a main, nerve for your entire hand and arm, like lower arm here area. So, I mean, hamate fractures, they can leave you with like numbness and pain in that area. It saps your grip strength because this is kind of an anchor point for a bunch of little tendons in there. Hands are complicated, obviously. And I'm not a doctor. I'm just married to one and, occasionally play one on stage. But it's just not a great injury to break that hamate bone. Not that any injury is great, but it usually requires surgery. It usually requires a lengthy rehab. I guess the blood flow to that area isn't great, right? So it's not overly helpful and healing can take a little bit more time because of that, because there's not as much blood flow to that area. So if you're looking to be optimistic about things right now, I mean, as far as Jose Ramirez goes, he broke his right hamate bone. He's a switch hitter. It's generally the lower hand on guys that get this injury, but he's a switch hitter. Well, back in 2019, he broke his right hamate bone. This was his left the other day. He was facing Tarik Skubal, so he was batting from the right side, and that means his bottom hand was his left hand. That's the one that he broke. But back in 2019, he was back in the lineup literally exactly 1 month later. Broke it on, I believe it's 24th of August, and he was back in the lineup on the 24th of September. So it was like literally exactly 1 month. He missed 29 games. Now that's not ideal, and that does represent a lightning quick turnaround for this kind of injury, all things considered. I wouldn't be expecting that necessarily. He is 7 years older after all than he was then. But, if his managers are looking for silver linings right now, Vinny and Ramirez are both likely out until late July at best, but we've seen Jose Ramirez come back from this kind of injury before. So there is the sky isn't quite falling yet. Now, I told you last time you joined me here on Straight to the Chase, that you could feel comfortable dropping Vinny Pasquentino with his performance, or actually lack thereof, this season. And I stood by that then. I stand by it now. If you didn't listen to me and you still had him, it looks like Jack Caglione. I still want to say Caglione because that's what it looks like to me, but I digress. Jack Caglione, he's going to take the bulk of the playing time at first, it looks like, while Vinny's out. He had been playing outfield, so he may not have first base eligibility in your league right now. Double check on that. But if he doesn't, that could change here in a couple of weeks, because obviously Vinny's out, I just told you, for a month or more at best case scenario. So Jack Caglione might be an option here in a couple weeks if he's not currently eligible at first base for you. He's been on a tear this month. He's starting to kind of maybe look like the guy they were hoping he'd be at the major league level when he was one of the top prospects in the game. And he's pretty widely available too, right? So there's a chance that he's out there for you and could give you a hand, or you can shuffle your lineup around if he's not eligible at first. He's a higher strikeout guy, but he has been getting on base at an above average clip. He's slugging 442, which is better than league average and better than he's done to this point in his pro career. And that slugging percentage has been climbing here in these past few weeks. So he could be an option depending on your league eligibility rules. Tell you what, though, hey, see if Paul Goldschmidt is available. He's been pretty solid for the last few weeks. He's been shouldering more and more and more of that offensive load for the Yankees there. Now, that's a lineup you want pieces of anyway, right? New York, they're tearing it up. They lead the league in OPS in several different categories. And I mean, they can hit. You want pieces of that lineup. And he's only rostered in like 10% of ESPN leagues. He's not widely owned right now. Not a whole lot of people have been running to pick up Paul Goldschmidt. But in the Yankees' last 15 games, he's got 16 RBIs, 4 home runs, 7 runs scored. He's hit safely in 13 out of the last 14 games that he's played, including he's on a nice little 7-game hitting streak right now entering this week. So I get it. Talked about it earlier this season with guys like Nolan Arenado and that. He doesn't excite you. It's Paul Oldschmidt, right? But the Yankees need him right now, and he's honestly delivering, and that could be good news if you're looking to replace Vinny in your lineup. As far as Ramirez goes, there is no replacing him. There just isn't. I'm sorry. There's no replacing, the overall best fantasy third baseman of the past decade in your lineup, or in Cleveland's lineup for that matter. Now they're going to be probably using Gilbert Arias for a lot of the playing time over there. They'll use some other guys, Schneeman or whatever his name is. They'll use some other guys to fill in, but it's going to be none of those guys are going to return, realistic fantasy value for you, especially when you juxtapose them against what you get from Jose Ramirez. Check and see if maybe TJ Rumfield from the Rockies is available in your league. He's not overly exciting either. I get it, but he might be eligible for you at first or third, depending on, again, your league eligibility rules. And he's been putting together a respectable campaign there. He's been pretty hot lately over the past week or so. So, I mean, hey, ride the train while it's hot and then cross the bridge when you come to a different one, to mix a whole bunch of metaphors up there. But that might be an option for you too there. Other injury news, Corey Seager dealing with some concussion symptoms and fallout from a home plate collision last week that he suffered against the Royals. He did miss some time, missed like 3 games over the weekend. Keep an eye on that. He hasn't been performing all that well for you, if we're all honest with each other. Speaking of guys that, we could have talked about last week about, tossing off your roster. But he is still rostered in about 2/3 of leagues because he was taken as the 11th shortstop off the board this spring. So I get that you might be reluctant to do it, but if you haven't dropped him yet, honestly, it shouldn't be all that difficult to replace what you've been getting from him. You're not going to get somebody with the same kind of star power, and you're not going to get somebody probably at this point who was worth, like I said, that 11th shortstop pick. But for what you've been getting from him, you can find that everywhere. So don't worry about that so much. Just replace him, move on. And then speaking of other injured guys who haven't performed up to their draft slot, Brent Rooker just went on the IL for a bone bruise in his left knee there for the Athletics in, basically the entire western part of the country, because they played in Vegas, they play in Sacramento. Some people they're still referred to on some websites as the Oakland A's. I don't know, everything west of the Mississippi, basically. But yeah, they put Brent Rooker on the IL this week. This dude was taken as outfield 13 in drafts. So I always think of basically the top 12 as your ones, because a lot of leagues are 12 people. He was taking his outfield 13. People were expecting big things from him and power and everything else. He currently owns a slash line of 200, 281, 389. That is not good. For those of you out there who might be uninitiated. Now, he has given you 10 home runs, but I mean, he literally hasn't given you much else, unfortunately. So again, I know where you drafted him, but replacing his production thus far shouldn't honestly be all that difficult for you if you're still relying on Brent Rooker. And for full disclosure, I tell you guys to do these things. I myself dropped him off of one of my teams. And the one team that I had him on, I dropped him. And I dropped him weeks ago. I was tired of dealing with it. I looked elsewhere, moved on. Don't be afraid to move on yourself. I said it last time. I will say it again. Don't be afraid. The bold. You have to be bold to prosper. Okay. We also lost O'Neal Cruz for likely about a month or more with a hand fracture. That hurts. Now he's been a pretty solid outfielder in points leagues for you this season. His average, his on-base percentage, his slugging, they're all up nicely over what you got last season. He was a disappointment last season, but they're all up real nice over that to career high levels, in fact, in case of his average for sure and slugging. But either way, you're not going to replace that kind of power and speed in your lineup with a single player. You're just not. So you might have to get creative with your lineups, but either way, he's going to be out for a while, so you're missing O'Neal Cruz. But in some positive injury news that we can toast to here, we got Tarik Skubal back this weekend. Woohoo! Now, his outing wasn't great, but he was back out there. And that's, if Tarik Skubal's on the mound, that's going to lead to good things for us in fantasy, right? His command was a little off. He wasn't quite as sharp as we would have liked to have seen, but his velocity was right where you wanted. He topped out at 99.9 miles per hour on the gun. So right where you want him, velocity wise. There's no weakness, there, no dead arm that we're dealing with or anything like that, which is awesome. And he's too good to be down for too long, so long as he's healthy, right? Should be facing the White Sox this week. Now, they actually hit lefties pretty well in Chicago. They're third in the league in OPS against southpaws, and they're also a top 8 OPS team at home, but it's Skubal, guys. Skubal. Unless he somehow has to suddenly face the Dodgers in Colorado, you're going to be starting him with no questions asked. Don't overthink it. Just rejoice that you got him back. And hey, kind of alluded to it earlier, but we also got Dylan Cease back this week and teammate Max Scherzer. So our Canadian friends have to be feeling pretty good, eh? Cease looked great. He looked especially great. He didn't get the win in the game because they needed some late inning heroics to score the third run and get the win there. But I mean, his stuff was as good, literally as good as it ever has been. He had a career high 29 whiffs. He only pitched 6 innings. He had 29 whiffs. 29. That's swings and misses for those of you who don't keep up with the modern terminology. And you don't get fantasy credit for the whiffs, most likely. I doubt it. I don't think there's probably a league out there that counts those. But you certainly do get the fantasy credit for the 11 strikeouts and just the 1 earned run that he gave you in 6 innings. Those are pretty sweet numbers, pretty sweet ratios. So feel free to fire him up in your leagues, everywhere that you got him. His next start should be probably Tuesday against the Red Sox. They're pretty middle of the road, both in terms of OPS, at home and against right-handers. So, as good as he looked and as mediocre as they've been, I don't anticipate Cease having a ton of trouble there. And then, hey, next up for the Blue Jays is getting Shane Bieber back. He's been on rehab assignment, but he could be making his return to the big league roster this week. So another thing to keep an eye on. Big things happening north of the border there. So, good luck with that, eh? Staying on the mound, let's take a look at some 2-start pitchers this week. Now, I already named one. You didn't know I was naming him as a 2-start pitcher, but we just literally talked about him. Dylan Cease actually should be in line for a double up here. if he gets to pitch against the Cubs on Sunday, which is what he's currently scheduled to do. So you got a double dip for Dylan Cease there. Zach Wheeler, Garrett Cole, Chase Burns, they all have 2 starts lined up, but you were pitching them anyway, right? Again, don't overthink it. You were pitching them anyway. I don't have to tell you to make sure Garrett Cole's in your flipping lineup. But how about Peyton Tolle this week from the Red Sox? Oh, he gets Toronto in his first matchup, but then he gets to go to Seattle and face the Mariners. The Blue Jays have not been great on the road this season. They rank in the bottom 10 in road OPS, and they're in the bottom half of the league facing left-handers as well. And then you get to the second game that he has this week, and Seattle has the second worst OPS in the majors against left-handed pitchers. And they also rank in the bottom half of the league at home. So it's kind of a perfect storm for Peyton Tolle this week. And he's available in just over half of leagues, probably. He's coming off a bit of a rough outing, which plays into that some, recency bias and what have you done for me lately. But overall, he's got a 2.70 ERA. He's got a 105 whip. He's got a K per 9 of just over 9 on the year. So he's striking out a guy per inning. So if you're in points leagues, that's an extra point for the out that he's getting you there. I say give him an ad this week and reap the rewards. I think it's going to be a good week for Peyton Tolle. I don't know if it'll be a great week for the Red Sox or not, because they've been pretty meh. But I think good things are coming this week for Peyton Tolle. So give him an ad here. And then, hey, how about Ryan Nelson of the Arizona Diamondbacks for a pair of starts this week too? He gets the Angels and the Twins at home. Now, the Angels, Los Angeles of Anaheim in Southern California of the United States in North America on Earth, whatever they call themselves now, whatever they want to call themselves, they've been terrible at home. And they've been terrible on the road as well. I mean, I'm trying to tell you that they suck on the road is what I'm trying to get to here. And they've also been terrible against right-handed pitchers. So, again, perfect storm for Mr. Ryan Nelson there. Minnesota's been a little better than that, but they still rank in the bottom half of the league in OPS in both of those cases against right-handed pitchers and on the road. Now, Nelson's coming off a pretty rough outing himself, but he's been pretty feast or famine all season. And before he had this rough outing that he's coming off of, he actually had pitched very well against the Dodgers. I think he went 7 complete and didn't give up. I mean, he was awesome against them. Now, he's not a big strikeout guy, okay, but he's not going to kill you in that respect either. He's going to hover. I mean, his K9, I don't have the number in front of me right now. It's less than 9, but he's not going to kill you in that sense, okay? I think he's worth a look if you need an innings guy this week. I really do. I think that he can put up some good numbers because, like I said, he's facing 2 teams that really should match up on paper well for him. And then another under the radar type of ad for a 2-start guy this week that you won't have to, spend a ton of fab on or fight guys in your league for, most likely. How about Tyler Phillips from the Miami Marlins? Now, he's on the road against the Phillies early, and that's good news all around because Philly, they suck. I mean, take that how it's meant in this context, but they have the 3rd lowest home OPS in the league. They're a bottom 7 team in OPS against righties, and they are also coming off a tough series in Milwaukee. This is not me being a Brewer fan. It's the flipping truth. They were shut out in 2 of the 3 games they just played. Now, granted, that's against Kyle Harrison and the Miz, neither of whom Tyler Phillips bears any kind of resemblance to whatsoever, except for the fact that he's, on a major league payroll. And Kyle Harrison and Mizorowski have been pretty good. Miz was pretty good Friday. If you didn't see it, look it up. Giggle it, kids. But either way, they profile as a good matchup for Phillips, I think, this week. And then he gets to go to South Florida, back home, and welcome the Giants to town to close the week out. He's still getting stretched out to a full-time rotation role. They've kind of used him as a tweener in all kinds of places this year, but he is getting stretched out right now, and he's getting closer to being able to handle full starter workload. He went 5 full innings in 2 of the last 3 games he's played. And in the game that he didn't go 5 full innings, he went 4 2/3 and threw 82 pitches. So he is getting lengthened out. He is getting to the point where, he should start pushing past that 5-inning mark, getting himself some wins as a starter there, and giving you some nice numbers. He's got a 2.95 ERA since they made him part of the starting rotation. That's not his ERA for the year. ERA for the year, I think, is up around, it might be up around 5 something. But since they made him a starter, put him in the rotation, he's been working that way. 2.95 ERA. So, and almost literally, like I said, no one is rostering him, so he's there for you if you need it. Reid Detmers is still available in over half of leagues, but he's been something of kind of a fantasy darling over the past month or so. If you've been paying any attention, he's had some really nice games over the last 4 or 5 weeks. He's been really dialed in, and he's been scoring you points left and right, but he's got 2 starts this week. And unfortunately, it's probably not the week to try to get in on that action, okay? He's on the road against the Diamondbacks and the Athletics. And those are 2 teams that both rank in the top 5 in OPS versus lefties. And they both rank in the top 9 in home OPS. So tougher matchup for Reid Detmers. I know he's been on a bit of a heater lately, and you want to get in on that if you can, probably. And he may get traded here, and we'll talk about trade deadline stuff on another episode, on a future episode here. But this is just probably not the week for it. So you're either going to want to leave him on the shelf this week, or if you already have him rostered, I don't know, see if you can swing a trade for him off this stellar stretch here. Maybe get something to help you out elsewhere. But this week, I'm not going to recommend Reid Detmers for you. But what I will recommend, I just told you the Athletics have a great home OPS. They are actually at home for all 7 of their games this week. Now, they and the Angels, so the A's and the Angels are the only teams in the whole league that play 7 games this week. Everybody else got a scheduled off day. A lot of them are scheduled off tomorrow, including my Brewers. But the Athletics being at home for all of them should be awesome for your A's hitters. Now, they're back in Sacramento at Sutter Health Park this week, so you're not going to get the absolute launching pad that they played in Vegas last week when they were scoring 14 runs and losing somehow in a game. That it seemed like all week long in Vegas there, every time a guy put one in the air, it was going to be out. I mean, the Brewers TV play-by-play guy on the 9th inning home run that tied the game. Even he made the call when the guy hit it. Said, "Oh, popped up into right field." And that ball just kept carrying and carrying and carrying and carrying and carrying and carrying. It's not going to be quite like that, I would think or hope, in Sacramento. It's not going to be Vegas. But what I will tell you is that Sutter Health Park ranks 2nd behind only Coors Field in terms of hitter-friendly park factors this year so far. It's not Vegas, but it's not short. It's not by a lot. It's not short by too much there. So you've got that going for you, which is nice. But what's more, they are going to line up to face possibly 6 right-handed pitchers this week, and they are a top half of the league team in OPS against right-handers. So what does that all mean for fantasy? I mean, we got a team that hits right-handers, facing right-handers at home where they hit like champs at a launching pad. Let's do it, right? Fire that up. It's going to mean that we're being very cautious about using our pitchers, both starters and relievers, in A's games this week. I don't care if it's A's pitchers. I don't care if it's their opponent's pitchers. We got to be careful using pitchers this week in the Athletics games. But it also means we're going to load up on A's hitters. Okay. Nick Kurtz and Shea Langeliers, or Langelier, as the French would say. Those guys are must starts anyway. Again, you don't need to tune into my show. I hope you still continue to tune into my show, but you don't need to tune into my show to hear, get Nick Kurtz and Shea Langeliers in your lineup. But I mean, hey, Tyler Soderstrom, Zach Geloff, Carlos Cortez, Lawrence Butler, all those guys deserve looks if they're in the lineup on any given day this week. Okay. I'm even going to say, I mean, if you've got to roster them or if you're streaming guys, whatever else, but give them some attention in your DFS lineups and on your prop betting too this week. I would be looking at if you're building parlays, see if there's a way you can find some plus money bets on those A's guys and plug one or two of those guys in your lineup and maybe make yourself a little bit of dough here this weekend, because it should be wheels up for offenses in Sacramento this week. Now Baltimore is going to get the Orioles. They're going to get to face right-handers in all 6 of their games this week, at least as it's currently scheduled, and they rank 8th in the league in OPS versus right-handers. Now, sucks because I just told you they're awesome against right-handers and they're playing all right-handers, but they're facing the Mariners and the Dodgers on the road. So while they have been a top 10 team as well in road OPS, and those two factors should point to positive things for the Orioles lineup, you got to keep an eye on who's on the mound against them all week, because they're facing the Mariners and the Dodgers, maybe the 2 best top to bottom starting rotations in the entire league. So your Baltimore hitters may not be usable quite as often as you would like them to be this week, or as often as you would think they might be. You're probably not sitting Polar Bear, but some of the other guys, the ones that you're using off and on, or they're who are scuffling a little bit, we might want to pull back the reins on them this week. Hey, Pittsburgh, though, speaking of schedule anomalies, Pittsburgh has series this week at the Athletics in Sacramento that we just talked about. And after that, they go to Colorado for the weekend. As my 8-year-old would say, let's go. I mean, that's a pretty good 1-2 punch there in terms of where they get to play this week. I mean, the Pirates lineup, they're night and day, home versus away, but they also haven't been playing their road games in Sacktown or Denver either. I mean, I just told you, they're the 2 best parks in the league for offense, and the Pirates get to play in both of them all week long. So get Brandon Lau, Spencer Horwitz, Brian Reynolds, Ryan O'Hearn, Nick Gonzalez, get those guys in your lineups. We talked about O'Neal Cruz earlier. We lost him just 1 week early. He would have been fun to watch this week. Watching O'Neal Cruz get to run around out west in those offensive juggernaut ballparks would be fun, but unfortunately we will not get to do that. But everybody else in a Pittsburgh Pirate uniform is fair game. So fire them up. All right. That's just all there is to it. You got to get that going. But that's going to do it for us right here this time on Straight to the Chase. Okay. Reminder, I want you to check out the FSAN channel on YouTube. That's Fantasy Sports Advice Network on the YouTube. Once you're there, I want you to click on that blue baseball logo and find all of our baseball video content. And this time I'm telling you to shoot on over there and see the newest members of the Fantasy Baseball Advice Network family, my guys Doug and Mike V from Bourbon and Ball. If you're not familiar with them, they have been at Fantasy Baseball a long time. Now they are bringing their talents home to the Fantasy Baseball Advice Network, so we are glad to have them on board. Remember as well to like us, subscribe, hit those notifications. You can look up STTC, that's what we call Straight to the Chase here, on your favorite podcast app. And please go to podchaser.com, search for Straight to the Chase, leave us a 5-star review. Then you're going to go over to fantasybaseballadvice.com. You're going to find all my baseball content over there, both podcasts and articles. And you're going to sign yourself up for a Pro Plus membership for access to all our articles, all our rankings, all of our video content for football, basketball, baseball. But wait, there's more, Chasers. You'll get access to Sellout Crowds, our all sports, only sports social media app where you can connect with other fantasy sports enthusiasts and content creators. Pro Plus members also get our rookie guide. They get 10% off and free shipping on all orders from the FSAN shop and automatic entry into Jersey Prize Leagues. So again, that is included with Pro Plus membership at fantasybaseballadvice.com. You can follow me personally everywhere at STT Chase FFB, all one word, STT Chase FFB, like it says here on the screen, on the social medias. But hey, for now, we are going to get up, get out of here, gone.
We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com today.